I'm gonna cut the line a little bit here. And I want to talk about Rob, which obviously he's a major thing, and I don't mean to make this the Rob show. I'm only jumping
Triple
to it.
double.
Do it. Do
I'm
it.
only
Do it.
I'm only jumping to it right now because Ime. I don't know if anyone was listening to this, Bobby. I don't know if you had Ime on. Ime said in his post game he didn't know Rob could pass like this. He can't be talking about like he didn't know it coming into today. Is that
No,
what he meant?
he meant like end of the season.
Before arriving here, he didn't
Yeah.
get. So okay, good, thank goodness, because people are putting that in the people are putting that in the chat, and I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know it? Like, I mean, look, if you watched
Yeah.
any of it last year, you knew what a good passer he was. He really does have excellent vision. Why do you guys think? Was today just a matter of it worked and people were making baskets, or were they running? Do you feel like they were running more stuff through their bigs? Because look at the assist totals. You have Rob with 10 and Al with 7, 17 out of your 28 assists, which is a great number. You want to be in those high 20s. 17 out of those 28 assists come from your bigs.
There was better ball movement,
Yeah.
not just in terms of just the bigs moving the ball, but just guys moving without the ball. You know, there was that sequence where Rob had the block at one end of the floor, came back down the other side, was at the elbow, and there was a great cut. I think it was by Josh Richardson for a layup. Those are the things that we haven't seen as much of. And I think part of that is because those guys haven't been in position to make those plays because guys aren't moving without the ball to get to spots where they can score. They did a really good job, I thought, for the most part, moving without the ball, which helps guys like Rob. It helps guys like Al who have that great core vision to actually have a moving target they can get the ball to.
That's
Yeah,
the
I feel a lot.
amazing part of this one.
Yeah.
It was shocking to see that level of off-ball movement with this group. That's the worst
That's
attribute.
everything, right? That's
Yeah,
it was
they never do
everywhere.
that.
Yeah, but
Ever. And
you have
it's
to
so
credit Ime too.
it's so noticeable when they do, Bobby, because they never do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then
And for Ime to put them in those situations, right? Those high-low actions that got, guys like Grant Williams some good looks, those mismatches. I mean, there was three offensive possessions in a row where they just kept giving it to Grant because the Suns were falling on that mismatch. I think it was Cam Johnson on him or another guard, and he made him pay. And that's exactly what you want to see Grant do, especially when he's able to get the ball in the paint, or around the free throw line, put that ball on the floor and make his move. And he didn't think twice,
yeah, it's a feather in
He really
Ime's
made him
cap
pay
for
for
Trader
that.
Joe's way. Like
What was
they
that?
went with a lineup today that I think kind of made all our eyes widen, the triple big there, but they had
Yeah.
something in mind when they went with that in terms of being able to bring a bunch of active wings off the bench, going to some second units there that could hurt Phoenix a little bit, and like you said, go high low with the starting offense and have Smart, Brown, and Grant in particular cut off those bigs there. And they both had great passing ability. Horford had a good game in his own right. Rob obviously highlighted this one in terms of what he did in the high post, dribble handoff, some flare screens off the side of him. They ran a lot of really good stuff with the ball in his hands. And it was kind of shocking to see Phoenix just swarm him when he had the ball in his hands, double sometimes, just leave cutters open. That first Romeo make, he just got completely abandoned by Chris Paul in that play, and that sort of led to a waterfall of action and big facilitation from there. That's something you'd like to see more of. Now the zone, I think early they were able to crack that, and that's something I think lent to that kind of like high post action there. That's where you want your bigs against the zone, but those guys have the ability, right? We know it. We know Rob last year did these sort of things. Horford's done it his whole career. They can sprinkle this in. I don't think this is like the antidote for their offense, letting the bigs handle things, but it's certainly something they're both capable of, and just another attribute for them to lean on. Like it's not something we see them do a ton.
Rob's well beyond capable, okay? Well beyond capable. He's actually got fantastic vision for not just for a big, for a player. He is a very good passer. He makes crafty passes in tight spaces. He anticipates. He throws the ball to where people need to be. He's a very good passer. It's not a thing that he can kind of do. So every once in a while you luck into it. Again, we talked about this last year with Brad. You have to stop. This isn't the world you want to live in. You have to live in the world as it is. You have to accept what Rob and so your players do well and build around those strengths rather than continue trying to fit square pegs into round holes. This is a thing that Rob does. You have to find a way to make the most of it, to utilize it, to put him in a position to use that skill, not just every once in a while when it happens, be like, oh, cool. We do know that he can pass. So I'm not surprised he made that play. You have to recognize this is actually a skill, Bobby. It's not just a thing he's okay at. So this was a big, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to totally evolve their offense around the bigs here, but you do have to put your best, you have to put your players in a position to do the things they do best.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Tatum and Brown are out as playmakers. Rob and Horford are in.
Well, there's no question, but that's the point is why Jalen isn't and will never be a playmaker. Not only is it just not, I mean, even when he throws passes, half the time they don't even hit the guys in their hands, when they are set shooters or they're a little bit late, just isn't a thing he looks to do. Rob, since he's not at all looking to work on his offense, has his eyes up, constantly looking for cutters and movement and things like that. He's got a quick touch. He makes quick decisions. So it is definitely a thing that you can, that he excels at. It's not just something that happens.
Yeah, and he
Yeah, I
does
mean,
need to add the other things too, right? Like he's got to be able to put it on the ground from those positions. He's got to make himself a threat, and that's what I mean. Like that's probably what's not sustainable off of this one. You're not going to have guys swarming him all the time.
You're
And double
not, but
teams trying to
yeah.
rip the ball from him.
Another quote, and Sherrod was about to say something, but another quote from Ime was, he's more than people think he is. This is like, I was kind of making the joke about Rob being like Neo in the Matrix, where he doesn't know he's the one yet. He has not fully realized his powers. And all
It
of a
is pretty
sudden,
amazing. You know what I
he's
saw
just going to
today?
hold up his hand and stop bullets. Like, I believe Rob could probably dribble if he wanted to dribble. If he wasn't afraid, like, I'm not supposed to be dribbling. Should I stop dribbling? I believe Rob could start hitting pull-up jumpers if he had his mindset that he's like, I know kung fu, like I can hit pull-up jumpers. He's gotta get there. I think he can start, but like Sherrod, you were gonna jump in on Rob. Like, I really don't think he literally doesn't know what he can do yet.
I
Yeah.
know kung fu. I can hit jumpers. I love that. We need to get T-shirts, Rob. T-shirts like that.
I
No,
know
the
kung
thing,
fu. Yeah.
the thing about Rob is that they have to figure out how to get the best from every player and put it all together in one package. I mean, here's the thing. When I think about this offense, I think so much about Tatum in ISO situation. You need to find that balance between Tatum doing what he does well, with Brown doing what he does well, and letting Rob become more of a facilitator because Rob has a lot of Jokic in his game. He doesn't
Yeah. Oh,
shoot
yeah.
like that, but as far as like his court vision,
Yeah.
he is. It's kind of sick. I mean, I would say right now in this team, he's probably got the best court vision of anyone on the roster. And if that's the case, you need to make the most of that skill. I mean, if you've got a guy who's your best shooter, guess what you're going to do? You're going to put him in position to take shots. If you've got a guy with great court vision, you need to figure out a way to get him in positions where he can take advantage of that. And the best way to do that is exactly what we saw today. Put him high-low action, have lots of guys moving without the ball along that baseline or just, spraying out towards the corners so that Rob can actually just encapsulate all of that and make the right decision. Because I feel way more confident that he's going to make the right decision when it comes to passing than I do Jalen, who, Jalen reminds me a little bit of Jameis Winston when it comes to passing the ball. It
Mhm.
He's
may
got that
get there.
stat line.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
may get to where it's going to get to, but probably it's going to get picked off more than it should. He had a few of those today.
Yeah, I think that's something that Ime needs to just start. I think he's noticed it before. I think it's something that he's trying to put everyone on notice right now. Is the fact that these guys can pass and that really opens things up. And when you got Jalen and Tatum both healthy, hopefully that's going to open things up and make things a whole lot easier for them. Because let's face it, I mean, the way things were going beforehand wasn't getting it done. It wasn't getting them easier looks, or at least it wasn't best for the offense in the sense of getting everyone involved. I think this puts on more responsibility for guys like Rob and Grant Williams and for the bigs, and they're capable of doing it. You're not asking them to do something that he knows that they're not capable of. It's just about practicing it and honing it and making sure that you're able to. It's something that you can rely on. That kind of passing.
I also believe, like, I do think this was. I'm a big ball finds, ball finds energy sort of guy. I do think that Rob came out like with a different mindset tonight, and that helped. I think a lot of the Celtics actually came out with it a little bit today, and you could see it. There were fewer plays they took off. Rob was working it. Like, I mean, where you could see, like, you could see him like panting and sweat.
Right.
Like, he really got after it, I thought. And I do think that when you play with that higher level of energy, it's always going to go better for you.
And I think
Yeah.
it starts with defense. I mean, when Rob got switched out where he's having to guard Chris Paul and Chris Paul couldn't get past him, that
They
was
piled up
huge.
stops, yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was like Harden last year.
Right.
Same sort of thing there, switching over onto him. But you're
Paul and
right.
Booker started 3 of 14. That was they racked that up, and that's a great defensive lineup that they put out there to start this one. That certainly set a tone. Then you moved into some of your more offensive looks as it went on. I'm just before we put the names Draymond and Jokic and ones like that around Rob, which I see the hints, I see the flashes. There's other parts of his game that got to come along here. And I did write this in Celtics blog, like for our New Year's resolutions for these guys. I did Brad and Rob. Like he's got to be able to put the ball on the floor a little bit. There were times in this one where like he did kind of look in panic mode, trying to dribble across the top of the arc there. I saw one of the commenters talked about him in the open floor and even just getting quality post touches. Like those are the sort of things he's going to need to have consistent places to create from, right? Like I think the zone lent itself to guys rotating onto him and occasionally doubling him here. But you're not always going to draw that level of pressure just from him having the ball in his hands, right? Because he can't really do anything with it. He can't pull up. He can't put it on the floor. He can't fake a handoff. Like these are sort of things he needs to start to do to regularly be a facilitator. He's going to do it when he gets his opportunities. But like I said, they only pass to him 18 times a game. He doesn't have the ball a ton, and there's not a lot of places where you can put the ball in his hands. So they have to emphasize
Yeah,
it for
you
him,
bring him up.
certainly.
You
And he's got
bring
to
him up
start
high.
to, improve
I
those
like
skills.
him catch. I like him with those, coming out and catching the ball high there, and not just being a screener. I like that. They did that a ton today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's ways to emphasize, and it's on them because he's not going to do these things overnight. Those are off-season improvements. Those are going to take years.
That's what bugs me about Rob.
But that's what you wanted to see, right, John? Yeah. Right.
I thought again, this was everyone talks about the lock him in a gym with KG or Patrick Ewing or something like that, and like learn how to play center. Learn how to do some things. Learn how to a couple of post moves and to put pull up jumpers, yada yada yada. His
usage is lower than last year.
Yeah, and in fact, not only did it not happen, he also came in chunky and out of shape. So again, I don't know what. And again, this was everyone's like, oh, he's bulkier. No, it wasn't good weight. It was obvious from day one. We said it. He didn't look explosive. He looked out of shape. He didn't look athletic. I still don't think he's in terrific shape. So he really needs. You're right. At some point or another, he needs the people around him. Whether it's, working with the Celtics directly on a program or something, to have a plan. We need, we have goals of you, and we need you to come back this year. It's like you do with Ben Simmons every year. We need next year, Ben, you to be a shooter. And then he's like, yeah, whatever. I'll post an Instagram from the YMCA, a couple weeks before training camp, hitting a couple threes, and everyone will think I worked on it. And that's about it. No, we need to really do something to get you there, because I don't believe Jokic is a comp. I don't believe all these things. I do believe he doesn't have a clue how good he can be yet, because he has yet to hone a lot of skills that he can probably do at a passable level to go along with the stuff he does at an elite level. That's my realistic thing. I don't think he's going to start dropping threes. You're just saying the stuff that he does, we keep talking about. Nobody else does that. Nobody else does a lot of what he can do. Very few people. He just has to get. I think Simmons is an interesting comp in the sense of, imagine how good Ben Simmons would be if he was just a bad shooter. Like just like a slightly below average shooter, he'd be a top 10 player because of all the other things he can do. Rob, with just a little bit of semblance of some post-up moves and a consistent 10-foot, 12-foot jumper, would be on another stratosphere, because then you wouldn't be worried about those aspects of his game. That's all he has to do. He doesn't have to be elite. Those just have to be passable aspects, because he does so many other things well. And the consistency on defense, obviously. You want to see. Be a given.
Right.
Yeah, that's a given, but that's everybody. You have to play consistently. You have to know your assignments. You have to be disciplined. You do see him drift in and out of that stuff. But we're not being unrealistic with it. We think just be okay at some of the other stuff that you're not doing at all. Right now, he's like Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons won't shoot. Rob won't do a lot of things. He gets the ball and he doesn't even look towards the basket.
My big three for him would be dribbling, putbacks. He's got to be able to put those up regularly instead of just dumping it out. And dumping it out is good sometimes, but he should have more putback baskets, just pulling it down each
I mean,
game.
Yeah.
And
dude,
then
he did have a couple from a standing position put back dunks tonight, So
oh
I
yeah,
mean,
his
Right.
offensive rebounding's been incredible in the last
And
2
there's too
games.
many
And
times
Yeah.
where he doesn't even look to put it back. He's just looking for a pass right away. I
Right.
hate that. Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
think the third
his
would be
instincts are to get the
free
ball,
throws.
to keep the ball moving, as opposed to just laying it up or dunking it on
Right.
somebody.
right.
Yeah, by the end of the year, I think you want to see some dribbling, nail down the free throws, and the putbacks. I mean, he gets so many offensive rebounds. He's top 5 in offensive rebounding. Had his career high in that Clippers game with 10, and then he had a bunch in this one as well. So he's one of the best rebounders in the game right now, period. So the things he does do already, as you always say, John, are pretty substantial, and then he can add to that. So there's a ton to work with here, and it's great to see him improving and being more consistent, doing it over more minutes. Like I've been thrilled with the year he has had.
Yeah.
I haven't been thrilled with it.
I didn't like it. Yeah.
I like it, but I'm not thrilled with it because again, some of the things that we're talking about are things that he should be doing more consistently than he is right now. When you think about it, I mean,
That's fair.
he's an elite rebounder. I think when he plays significant minutes, but we haven't seen that.
But he's
an
fairly
excep-
young. Am I allowed to call him young, John?
young in age or young in experience.
Both.
Because the two are not. Because the two are. I don't think the two are interchangeable.
I mean, he's a little older in basketball years, but experience-wise, yeah, he's definitely young.
Yeah, I just think for him the biggest thing is consistency in terms of his health and consistency in terms of his approach and attitude towards the game. Because he came out with a different kind of fire in this game that we don't always see. And
Right.
I don't care if he plays as well as he did tonight, but I do want to see that fire. I do want to see that energy that I'm gonna kick somebody's ass tonight, even if you don't do it. Have that mindset. I don't see that enough from him, but we obviously know it's there.
I want to see him become a big deterrent again on defense too. Like there were some blocks in this game, and this when we speak of consistency that were just scary for Phoenix. Like just him coming through and wiping shots out. He did that repeatedly throughout
Yes.
this one, and that's what you want to see him do consistently for sure. Like there's 2 sides to the ball here that he can really dominate.
And again, he gets in your head. That stuff isn't only the plays he makes, it's the plays that people are afraid to make because they know that he's lurking there. And it's the same thing offensively, the gravity, the fear of that lob and the roll there and the space that it creates. Again, it's the offense. Both sides of the ball are better when he's on the court playing at or near his peak. They're better with him out there. He makes both sides of the ball better.
And this
It's
team
just
would be
matter
a
of
lot more
consistency.
fun if he was more involved, right? Like he's the most fun guy they have to watch
He is.
by far.
Right. That's the thing is like for
Yeah.
Tatum and Brown, as good as they are, at the end of the day, it's a lot of jump shots is what you're seeing, like just in terms of like jaw dropping excitement. Usually it's it's the Rob stuff, when you see him do the things that he does, you're like,
That dunk against Cleveland last week, I'm still in shock of him doing the little Euro step and just floating up there.
yeah, there was a bunch of great stuff.
Well, I
Tonight
feel
was
like
tonight was one of those. He had about 12 plays where you're like, oh my goodness. I mean, he had a
Right.
ton of them tonight.
See, I was just gonna say,
Today.
I feel like now Rob's going back into like, okay, now opposing teams are gonna prepare for Rob. You know what I mean? Like that kind of territory. Which, believe it or not, that was the case last season when John was going crazy and being like, man, why don't they play him more? He was starting to get into other team scouting reports, and this season that hasn't been the case. Now he's getting back into that territory, and I love the fact that Ime is trying to get him out of the paint, get him more passing action that way, because that way the opposing big is going to get out of the paint. And that should open things up for the Jays, Of course, I'm looking ahead here, but I think that's the overall big picture here. Make things easier for those guys.
Let me give you a quick Rob quote. He was asked about Udoka's comment saying he's more than people think he is. Rob says, shit, he believes in me a lot. I guess he sees something in me I don't. I'm thankful
Even he's
for the
shocked.
but it's interesting. I guess he sees something in me I don't. I'm thankful for the way he pushes me every day, trying to get the best out of me. I swear, he's that kid on the playground who's like this big and this strong, who lets people bully him, and he doesn't realize like all you have to do is stand up and push him like that, and the kid goes down. Like you're the big guy,
Right.
Like I really do believe. At some
That's
point,
how he plays too.
someone's gonna tap him on the shoulder and be like, "Rob, you're the guy."
Right.
Like don't.
He's like,
Right.
yo, Ime thinks I'm like really good.
Like,
he's
good
like
at this
surprised
thing.
about it. Like, yeah.
He is. He does. I really believe he does not know what he's got.
And that's the scary part. I think
Yeah.
for both the Celtics and I think for the rest of the NBA that this guy has ridiculous talent that we all see, Ime included, and he doesn't really have that kind of swagger that someone with his skill set should have. And when he gets
Right.
it, that's going to be kind of scary because then you're going to have a guy who's probably pushing himself to be even better than what people think he can be. And to your point, Bobby, I mean, little things that he can add to his game between now and next year, like a short 10 to 12-foot jump shot, being able to, instead of just swatting the ball 5 rows back, swat it a little bit more inbound so that it winds up in the hands of Marcus Smart or Tatum, who can get out and get a transition bucket. Little things that I think
Set
he
better
can.
screens too. Like he
Yeah.
can really start hammering guys on those screens and getting downhill, creating some separation there. There's so many areas he can clean up, as good as he already is.
Sherrod, not to get too ahead of myself, but isn't that what Red Auerbach told Bill Russell? Like, look, man, don't put it in the 5th row or 7th row. Keep it in bounds so guys, you can start the fast break. Like,
Yeah.
That
that's
is.
a heck of
That
a,
is. And
that's a
and
hell
it's
of a
one of
line.
those. Yeah,
If
it's one
Tommy was alive, we would have heard so many Bill Russell
Oh,
comparisons
man.
over the last 2 years.
easily,
Right.
easily, easily,
It's so true.
easily.
And you know what? They would have been better than the Greg Stiesman ones and the other ones we heard.
I like Steamer, man. Don't talk. You cannot talk bad about Greg Steamsman.
No, I'm just talking up Rob. Like there's
Did you
there's
have him
some
on your show recently? Sure.
parallels
Who
there.
had him on? Did somebody have Steve's? No.
Wasn't me.
I thought he appeared somewhere recently. I couldn't
I know I've
remember.
talked
Podcast you
about
watched
it.
it. Who's got
He was
Greg
probably
Stiesman?
making his case as a replacement player.
Yeah.
Bring it
all right.
on.
Like I said, we could make this the Rob show. I don't
Steamer.
want to go all day long. I do think again, it's that between same as the team. Is it fool's gold or is it kind of like again? I really do believe with Rob, it's a matter of like, this is you, buddy. Like this is a thing you can do. Like I don't know if it's a focus issue. I don't know if it's a confidence issue. I don't know what it is, but you can do stuff like this regularly and like really be something, just do it. I do think sometimes he just accepts that like, I only touched the ball 5 times today, and they just kind of let it happen that way.
Well, it makes me think this offensive rebounding spurt he's on goes back to about a month or 2 ago. Like really telling him to get going in that regard. He can get on the offensive boards and be aggressive there. That's something he wasn't doing just because I didn't feel like he felt the need to go do that at an aggressive level. And now that he's decided, all right, that's part of my role is chasing down all these offensive rebounds, he's getting a million every game. So I think there's got to be some sort of repetition and effort by others to involve him.
Right.
They got to find him, right? Like he's not a guy who can create for himself right now.
But-
they have to pass to him way more than 20 times a game.
Exactly. And you see it like with some like, like Jimmy Butler, would always be like, you hear stories about how he makes some other people around him better. And again, this is kind of what you're talking about from Tatum and Brown. Everyone's hung up on assists and potential assists and this and that. But a lot of it comes down to you can do this. I'm going to put you in a position to do it. I want you, like, not just doing it in game, talking to the person, telling them like, you can do all of these things, do them, man. You've got my support, our support to be this thing, because it's a big deal, whether it's Rob or whomever else that is. And I'm not saying they don't do that, but that's kind of part of the whole package is, empower people to, go out there and play their game without fear, and the best that they can. And you're right. You can't have nights where Rob it never gets the ball in his hands at all when you see how many good things he can do about it. You can't have days where Romeo gets significant minutes and only gets 3 shots. Like it just isn't good enough. That's what we mean about developing them, empowering them, putting them in positions to make contributions to succeed, to build momentum going forward. Then you see a game like Romeo had the other night and you're like, okay, maybe not. Maybe we should just put him in mothballs. So, I mean, I get the back and forth with it, but that's kind of what you want to see with this stuff.